Okay, so I'm going to start today's class by welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to everyone here and welcome to everyone who's joining us online. This is the introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha course, where I share some introductory information to just help you understand what the teachings of the Buddha are and how to approach them. And then we're going to ultimately get into the very first teaching of the Buddha that you would need to know in order to get on the path to enlightenment. But before we get started with all of that, I'm going to start with meditation so you guys can experience some of the teachings of the Buddha. We're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation, which I'll start off with chanting, where I'll just kind of ease us into the meditation with some chanting. But just remember that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not a prayer or anything like that. If you'd like to see the chants, they're over there on the table. There's a laminated sheet that you can see the chanting that I'm doing, and it has the English translations as well. And you're welcome to join along in the chanting if you'd like. So I'll do the chanting first. This will ease us into meditation. And then while we're in meditation, I'll be giving you some guidance during the meditation itself. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet. We'll just be meditating. Those of us here and everybody online, we'll just all be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting as well. And in terms of your position for meditation, there's 4 positions that you might learn at any given time. They're seated, lying, standing, and walking. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So if you're on the floor, you might just sit with a cushion under your rear. Some people like to just have their legs lightly crossed, or even some people put their legs off the mat. This helps to lessen the pain in the lower body, because you're not interested in being in pain. So some people grow up sitting on the floor, other people don't. So you're welcome to get a chair or anything like this if you'd like to sit. But if you're on the floor, it's usually nice to have a cushion under your rear with your legs just slightly crossed. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you would like to use this, you're more than welcome to. But this path isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. There's other options as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees, or their palms up, or maybe even just place their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can just sit with your lower body and hands and arms relaxed and comfortable. The upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It helps the mind stay attentive and alert during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe, because with your sternum up and your shoulders back, you'll be able to breathe more easily in and out of the nose. So as I mentioned, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'll come back with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno สกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in naturally through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And when you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังมหาควันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาควตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะควาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ If you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to our short little course here, just a 3-hour course, just to help give you an introduction or a taste to the teachings of the Buddha. And as we go in our class today, you're welcome to ask any and all questions. I'm going to pause at different times and kind of let you guys ask any questions that you like. For those of you guys here at the temple, if you could use the microphones here, this would really help out for the people online to be able to hear you. If you have a microphone, you can just keep it with you. Where there's a gray button on the microphone, you press it and the lights come on. You just wait a second or two, put it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple. They'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting your question into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom electronically, and then I'll be able to see that, and you can open up your microphone and ask any and all questions that you like. So, excuse me, just had lunch. So just to get us started in understanding the introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, I'm going to share with you first of what a Buddha is, so that you understand what a Buddha is. That's a good place to actually really start. Is what a Buddha is an individual who's gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then after they get to enlightenment, they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during their lifetime. And then the third criteria of what makes a Buddha is that they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. They get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during that time frame. And then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three criteria. But then there's other criteria as well. An individual who is going to become a Buddha, they have a profound memory. They can remember countless details about their current life and their previous life as well, their previous lives as well. That in the unenlightened state, even a person who's going to become a Buddha, they will have a pretty profound memory. And they have a certain quality of mind that the average person doesn't have. Like, for example, for you, you have a certain limited capacity of your memory. It's kind of like a hard drive on a computer. Like a hard drive is maybe 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. And when you get to the maximum amount of space on your hard drive, you need to delete old files in order to store new files. And this is why you can remember things pretty well for the last 5 years or so of your life. But when you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories about things that have happened in your childhood. So the mind of a person who's going to become a Buddha, they don't actually have that same situation. They have an unlimited capacity in their mind that they can remember countless details about their current life and their past life as well. And this is what helps them to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, that they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes and they can bring all that together in their last life in order to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves. So where most people will have a certain limited capacity to their memory, a person who's going to become a Buddha doesn't have that. They have an unlimited capacity to remember things. Then a person who's a Buddha, they can quickly determine the condition of somebody's mind by spending time with that person. They can see the pollutions in their mind very clearly and very easily because they would have already done the work on their own mind to improve the condition of their own mind. A Buddha would then be able to see the condition of other people's minds as well. And they would only do this in order to help that person to be able to get to enlightenment, so that when their students are coming to them and they're having certain challenges, a Buddha would be able to see that aspect of their mind and then be able to provide them teachings to be able to help them to then improve that and make it better. And then a Buddha will have a deep practice of their own teachings. They will be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. So a Buddha doesn't teach one thing and do something completely opposite. If they teach this, they're going to actually do it. So a Buddha knows that they're teaching just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. That a student is learning through a Buddha's spoken words, but they're also learning through their actions as well. That they can observe a Buddha in life and they can understand that this is how a Buddha functions in the world, an enlightened being functions. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you will be an enlightened being, but you won't be a Buddha by that point because you won't meet all of these criteria. So this is what a fully perfectly enlightened Buddha is, or a fully perfectly enlightened one. We refer to them as fully perfectly enlightened because they don't have teachers and they don't have guides, that their mind is fully perfectly enlightened because if a Buddha is trying something to improve the condition of their mind, if it works, they know that this is the path to enlightenment. But if it doesn't work to improve the condition of their mind, they'll discard it. They'll get rid of it. And now by the time a person gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, their mind is fully, perfectly enlightened. They've discarded anything that didn't lead to their actual enlightenment. They're only doing what it took to be able to get to enlightenment. And then they share that with other people to be able to help other people get to enlightenment as well. So this is some of the criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. So now what I'm going to share with you is what the teachings of the Buddha are, and then I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha aren't, kind of as an introduction or a taste to the teachings of the Buddha. And then eventually we're going to get into the actual first teaching of the Buddha. So the teachings of the Buddha is a path to attaining enlightenment. It's a purification of the mind through training of the mind. You get to this mental state of enlightenment where the minds have been fully purified. And because of that, you'll experience these types of things, that this mental state is attainable during your life or at death. And the ideal would be to attain this mental state during your life, but it can be attained at death as well. And by the time you get to that enlightened mental state, your mind's going to be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. You'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the mind. You'll notice that you're always in a good mood because the pollutions that are causing the mind to be in a bad mood have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. So the mind will only be experiencing this peace and joy, no longer experiencing any discontent feelings. There'll be a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because again, you've cleared out all the pollution in the mind, so now the mind's performing optimally. It has this focus and concentration. There's clarity in the mind. There's a deep memory as well. You'll notice that you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody around you. That in the unenlightened state, you find that challenging. There are certain people in your life that maybe have some animosity towards, or bitterness, or maybe you're impolite or disrespectful to certain people. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you can be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody around you. This is one of the aspects of the enlightened mind, because you've purified the mind. You won't be causing harm to other beings through your intentions, your speech, your actions, your livelihood. You will have cleared all that up about your moral conduct. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are drastically improving, that they're at ease and they're very peaceful and blossoming, because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile anymore. As long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile in the way that you talk to people, this is all going to come back to you. So by the time you get to enlightenment, all your personal and professional relationships will be at ease. You'll be friendly and polite and warm and respectful to everybody and anybody around you. The reason why this is occurring is because you've eliminated what's called craving, anger, and ignorance. These are the three high-level ways that we refer to the pollutions in the mind. There's a more detailed teaching called the 10 fetters. That is the 10 detailed problems that the Buddha discovered. And everything he's teaching you is to eliminate those 10 fetters. We call it a fetter because what a fetter is it's like a shackle around your ankle, and it's a chain and it's a ball. This is how they kept prisoners trapped in a certain area during the lifetime of the Buddha, is they would attach a fetter to your ankle. Well, today we put prisoners in jail cells, and this is pretty much how they stay confined. But during this time, they refer to it as a fetter, that this chain and the shackle and this ball would keep you trapped. So these 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered is keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So we refer to them as fetters. But when we talk about them more as a high level, we refer to them as the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires, or the 3 poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. What craving is this longing and yearning in the mind, chasing after the objects of your affection. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst, where the mind thinks that something outside of you is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So it might be more money. You want more money, more money, more money, more money. That's what'll make my life better, more money. Oh, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. Let me get a boyfriend or girlfriend. That'll make everything better. Oh, let me, get this new car, this new house. There's something that the mind's longing, yearning for. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings, maybe like anger or sadness or frustration or some other discontent feeling. We're going to talk about this more later towards the middle of our class today. But this craving, desire, attachment, this is what's causing the mind to be discontent. It's causing the mind to be shaken up, that you're happy and excited because it's sunny outside, but then when it rains, maybe you're sad or frustrated. Or you're really happy when your bank account is one balance, but then when your bank account goes down, you're sad or you're frustrated. Or if your mom or dad do this, you're happy. But if they do this over here, you're sad or you're frustrated or agitated. The mind goes up and down and up and down. And this is all because of craving. So one of the things that can arise when you have certain cravings is your anger. Because again, if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings like happy, excited. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. And one of the things that arises is anger, your bitterness, your hostility, your aggression towards other beings. And then where all this is coming from is called ignorance or misunderstanding or confusion or misperception. I like to refer to this as the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom, that the unenlightened mind just lacks wisdom, that it doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because it doesn't understand that the mind is causing its own anger, its own frustration, you will typically blame it on other people. You will think other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated. And you will tend to push people away out of your life, thinking that that solves the problem. But that doesn't solve the problem, because it's only a matter of time before you get angry or frustrated about something else. If this was the true problem, when you push those friends or those people out of your life, you wouldn't be angry anymore. but you didn't solve the problem because that's not the real cause of the problem. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring, trying to fear somebody into doing something your way. And that doesn't work either, because you can't fear people into doing things your way. It's not going to work, because there's going to be people who don't do things your way. And then the third thing that the mind will do in the unenlightened state is it'll have expectations, where it'll try to control people and force people to do things your way. So as long as your mind misunderstands that it's craving that's producing this anger, as long as you have this ignorance or this lack of wisdom, you'll keep experiencing anger over and over and over again. You'll keep experiencing frustration and guilt and shame and loneliness and boredom and all these other discontent feelings. But today, by the time we get to the end of the class, I'm going to teach you the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward, so you can understand and have this breakthrough to knowing what it is that's truly causing your discontent feelings. And you will be able to independently verify what I share. There's nothing that I teach you that's based in belief. So when I teach you the very first teaching of the Buddha, you'll be able to see the truth for yourself, that it's your mind that's causing these discontent feelings. So by the time you've gotten to enlightenment and purified the mind, you've purified the mind of craving, anger, and ignorance, these three pollutions, or these three poisons, or these three taints, or these defilements, or these stains. But more specifically, it's called the 10 fetters. Okay, so this is the goal of the teachings of the Buddha, is to get to this purification of the mind. What he's helping you to awaken to in terms of wisdom, when we talk about awakening the mind, you're awakening to wisdom of the natural laws of existence, namely the natural law of Gotama. Some people refer to it as karma. This is the Sanskrit language, but the original teachings of the Buddha are in Pali. So if you study the original teachings of the Buddha in Pali, people use the word Gama. So what this word Gama means is it means cause and effect, or action and result. There's some decision that you make, and then there's going to be a result. If you make a wise decision, it's going to produce wholesome results. And if you make an unwise decision, it's going to produce unwholesome results. So you have wholesome Gama and unwholesome Gama, right? It's the results of your decisions. So the Buddha is helping you to awaken to this natural law so that you can see the truth for yourself. Because if you lack wisdom of a natural law, you'll struggle. You'll have difficulties. When your mind's angry and sad and frustrated, you're having struggles, you're having difficulties. It's the same thing with the natural law of gravity. None of us knew the natural law of gravity when we were first born, and that's why we struggled. We had difficulties. We fell down, we hit our head, we hit our elbow, we broke our toys. We had all kinds of difficulties. But slowly but surely, we learned this natural law of gravity, and we started making wiser decisions that produce more wholesome results for us. Now we're at a point where we can ride a bicycle, we can ride a motorbike, we can climb ladders, we can get on airplanes and travel all over the world, because we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. And we have wisdom of that natural law. But there's these other natural laws, namely the natural law of Gama, that the mind doesn't understand. And because it doesn't understand this, it struggles and it has difficulties. Because if you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle. You'll have difficulties. So what the teachings of the Buddha are is it's not a bunch of beliefs. It's helping you to learn, to reflect, to independently verify, and to practice the teachings so you can acquire wisdom. And now with this wisdom of these natural laws, you're going to function in the world with the ease, because you now understand the world that you live in. But when you don't understand, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. So the Buddha didn't explain how the world should be. Sometimes people think like teachers like the Buddha is going to give you a bunch of rules and commandments and explain the way the world should be. He didn't explain to you the way the world should be. He explained it to you the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is, and now you awaken to that wisdom and you have that understanding of the natural laws, you'll navigate the world more readily. But when you don't understand the way the world is, then you will struggle. You will have difficulties. So the Buddha is not telling you how the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And you can learn that intellectually. You can reflect on it to independently verify it for yourself. And then you can practice and train your mind, uprooting the pollution out of your mind. And you'll see the mind becoming more peaceful and more joyful as a result. So this training of the mind, you get closer and closer to this complete peace and joy through acquiring wisdom of the natural laws of existence and eradicating any kind of pollution in the mind. The Buddha's teachings are timeless. They were spoken over 2,500 years ago, but he's describing these natural laws. These natural laws don't change from his lifetime until now. So his teachings are timeless. You can see the word choices that he uses. He uses word choices that are timeless. His teachings aren't based in any one particular time frame. He spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise, describing these natural laws for you so that you can see the truth for yourself. He does teach the cycle of rebirth. He teaches that there's the realm of hell, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits, human realm, and the heavenly realm. And he does this for a reason, because he's explaining the way the world is. This is true reality. You can actually independently verify these 5 realms. And it's not that these realms are in some far distant place. These beings are all right here in the same time and space. So just like there's a human being sitting on this particular chair right now, there could be an animal that comes and sits here too. And the same thing is true about beings in the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, and the heavenly realm. These are formless beings that don't have physical form, but they're right here in the same time and space as us. They're not in some far distant land. But the Buddha taught this cycle of rebirth in these 5 realms for specific reasons. Because as you're training your mind, you could very likely observe your past lives in any of these realms. And if you didn't understand the way the world is, it could really shake you up. If you started having deep memories about some previous life, like maybe you were murdered in the past, or maybe you had been abused physically or sexually, or maybe you died a traumatic death. And if you kept having these recurring memories of this over and over and over again, and you didn't realize that was your past life, it could really shake you up. Or these other beings, sometimes people experience communication, that you can hear beings from the hell realm, or the afflicted spirit realm, or the heavenly realm. And if you didn't understand that these things existed, it could really shake you up. And some people can actually see these beings. Some human beings can see hell beings or afflicted spirits, which are ghosts, or heavenly beings. If you saw them and you didn't realize this is the way the world is, it could really shake you up. So the Buddha describes the cycle of rebirth very clearly, and it's something you can independently verify. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but as you progress in your journey, there comes a time where you might be interested in independently verifying that, and you can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha did teach about God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha didn't teach about God. You can hear some people that say, oh, the Buddha rejected God and there is no God, the God doesn't exist. This isn't actually true. The Buddha didn't teach that. The Buddha taught that about God, but he didn't make God as a central role in his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. So the Buddha put you as the central role in his teachings, because it's up to you to make wise decisions about your life. So he didn't put God as a central role in his teachings, but he did teach about God. So you will see this in his teachings where he mentions God and he talks about God, but he's not a central role, because the central role is you, because you need to learn and grow and develop and cultivate wisdom. You're the one who's at the center of his teachings. Then in terms of the teachings of the Buddha and where they come from, the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha is called the Pali Canon. We call it the Pali Canon because the language that's being used is the Pali. Some people have other ways to refer to this, but we typically refer to it as the Pali Canon because it's in the Pali language. And it's 45 large books that are about this thick. I guess that's about 10 centimeters thick, 8 centimeters, 10 centimeters, maybe 4 or 5 inches thick, right? And this is the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. His discourses were documented after his death. Everything that he taught was oral. So they didn't write the teachings down until he died, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. He was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in Northeast India. And the technology to write things down existed in China, but it hadn't made its way to that region of the world yet. So he just taught orally. But after he died, the technology was in that area, so then they started writing his teachings down not too long after he had died. There's these 45 volumes of books. The average person who's studying, or I should say the average person who considers themselves Buddhist, doesn't actually study the original teachings of the Buddha. So, you grew up in Thailand, you kind of know like the average person doesn't actually study the original words of the Buddha, because these 45 books, to have them printed out is very expensive. It's about 3 months of the average Thai person's salary. If you were to print out the Pali Canon, it would cost you probably about 35,000 baht, 40,000 baht. And that's about a good 3 months of salary for the average Thai person, making about 10, 12, 15,000 baht a month, right? So you probably don't own any book collection worth 3 months of your salary. So here in Thailand, the average Thai person doesn't have the original teachings readily available to them. Even the average temple doesn't have the teachings readily available because they're so expensive to be able to produce, because they're in so many volumes of books. But this book series that I share, it's consolidated it down into a smaller, digestible, manageable chunks. It's 13 volumes of books, and they're much smaller than the 45 volumes of books. Because the way the Buddha would teach in an oral tradition is he had a lot of repetition. He would teach the same things over and over and over again. So when you look at the Pali Canon, there's a lot of repetition in there. So this Pali Canon has been consolidated into 13 books. And then because of the internet, you can download it for free. You can take it and go print it for a reasonable price. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us. I think an entire set of these books is about $150. So that's much less than the, $1,000 or $1,200 that it would typically cost to print out the entire Pali Canon. But you could also get it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon. But if you're comfortable reading an electronic book, you can just download it for free and just read it right on your computer. You don't even have to print it out. So nowadays we have the ability to distribute the teachings much more widely than we did at other times in history because of the technology that we have available to us. So this book series consolidates everything, and then I give it away to students at no cost so that you can have access to this book series. That's why I refer to it as the words of the Buddha, the path to enlightenment, revealing the hidden. Because even though the teachings haven't been overtly hidden, they've been inadvertently hidden because of the extreme cost to be able to print them out. But now we have technology that we don't necessarily have to do that. So you can have access to these teachings if you would like to learn and grow and develop, understand the teachings of the Buddha. And then lastly, to talk about what the teachings of the Buddha are, is I think about them as the teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what hurt you is inside your own mind. What we misunderstand in the unenlightened state is that we think the pain that you're experiencing is coming from something external. But it's not coming from anything external. It's coming from within your own mind. So that's why you can actually heal from what's hurting you so that you never need to ever hurt ever again. Because you don't enjoy experiencing painful feelings. It doesn't feel good to be angry and sad and frustrated and lonely and bored and feeling guilty and shameful and all these other discontent feelings like fear and stress and anxiety. You can eliminate all of that if you understand how, and you gain the wisdom of how to do that. So that's what the teachings of the Buddha are for. It's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on what I've shared so far about what the teachings of the Buddha are. Do you guys have any questions here or online? Remember, those of you guys online, you can put questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Could you get a mic? That way the people online will be able to hear you.
Can you elaborate more on the discourse that the Buddha talks about God? Like, how did he talk about God and in which way?
Sure. So there's many different discourses where he's referencing God. During his lifetime, they referred to God as Brahma. So this is how you'll typically see him referring to God, is he'll call him the great Brahma, right? But he also taught multiple gods, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were belief in multiple gods. So he actually taught something like 32 different gods. But he most often referred to this great Brahma, this great God. And he referred to him as the creator of the world. But he also teaches that God isn't the one who controls what you experience, that it's your decisions that relates to anything you experience. But he talks about him almost like this other being in the world, that there's just this other being, and then here's what this being is. And the way that I teach it is I teach that you can have a relationship with this being or not and still get to enlightenment. So in our other programs, I teach how to have a relationship with God and still get to enlightenment, because you need to learn that God isn't controlling things. You don't need to fear God. You don't need to worship God necessarily. These kinds of things. People have been taught that God controls things in the world. If you thought this way, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. But I also teach people not only that they can't pray to God and ask for benefits. The Buddha teaches this too, that you can't pray to God in order to get benefits and stuff like this. This would be like treating God like a genie in the bottle, right? So there's a way to forge a healthy relationship with God, if that's what you would like to do. But there's also a way to get to enlightenment without a relationship with God. Just like your next door neighbor. You may have a relationship with them and you may not. It's up to you. They're another being in the cycle of rebirth, just like God. So he teaches all these different things, but he never teaches that, to worship God or to praise God or to pray to God or to be fearful of God or that God controls anything. But he just describes him as this being that exists in the world, and here's this being, essentially, is what he does. But if you'd like to know, all the words that he shares about this, on the book set, volume 11 is where you'll see him teaching the most about God, because that's where we've consolidated the realms of existence, and God is a being that is usually associated with the heavenly realm. But he's a being in existence just like everyone else. Yep. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So now what I'm going to teach you is what the teachings of the Buddha aren't. This is a good way to learn about what the teachings of the Buddha are, is to understand what they aren't. Okay? So the teachings of the Buddha, they're not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in these things, and an unpleasant afterlife if you do not believe in these things. Nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. Even if you've been taught that way, it's not about believe, and hope something good happens when you die. It's about learning now, reflecting now to independently verify, and then the practice now. And because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you experience the benefits now in this life, right? So the teachings of the Buddha, they're not opinions, they're not a views, they're not a doctrine, they're not rules or commandments. It's about this natural world, and then you can independently verify it. The teachings of the Buddha, in my opinion, they're not a religion, because oftentimes people associate religion with there's one person at the top, and that person is disseminating teachings to everybody else in the world. And now those rules and commandments, you need to follow those rules and commandments. And then there's usually rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship that is associated with those kinds of things. So if that's the way you think about religion, that there's like one person at the top, there's certain rules and commandments, and then there's rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship that is being done, the teachings of the Buddha is not a religion, because there are no rites, rituals, and ceremonies and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. Even if you grew up with that, that's not the actual teachings of the Buddha. That's what people have changed and modified, and they're associating with the Buddha, and they're saying that it's Buddhism, or it might be a monk, or it might be someone at a temple that's doing something that they're claiming is the teachings of the Buddha. But when you look at his original teachings, he never teaches any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. So if you think about the religion as one person at the top telling everyone what to do, with rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and rules and commandments that everyone must follow, the teachings of the Buddha aren't that. It's exactly the opposite of that. There isn't just one person at the top of Buddhism. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and there aren't rules and commandments. Some people try to describe the teachings of the Buddha as rules and commandments, but if you read his actual words, he never teaches it that way. Other people today might try to teach it that way, but that's not the way he taught it during his lifetime. And because not everybody studies the original teachings of the Buddha, they might not realize that that's not the way the Buddha taught it. But they're teaching it that way because that's the way their teacher taught, and their teacher taught, and their teacher taught. So for so many years, people have just been handing things down that aren't necessarily the original teachings. So that's why it's so important to go back to the original teachings and see what did he actually teach. And then don't believe it. Don't believe it, but learn it, reflect on it, and practice it. Then the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about punishments and rewards. Sometimes people think that that's the way that these kinds of teachings are. It's like, okay, you do these things and you get rewarded, and you don't do these things and you get rewarded. Or if you do these things, you're going to get punished, right? Or if you don't do these things, you get punished. That's not the way the teachings of the Buddha are. He's just explaining to you what it took for him to get to this enlightened mental state. And if you'd like to get to that enlightened mental state, it's available for you and you can learn it and practice it. It's not about being punished or rewarded or anything like that. There's also isn't any mystical or magical aspects of his teachings. Superstition or auspicious things, these don't exist in his teachings. He says it very clearly that there's nothing auspicious about his teachings or superstitious. But nowadays, people have become very superstitious and they think some things are mystical and magical, like these chants that I do. That's why I teach you that there's nothing mystical or magical about them. It's just words that one time they were using them in order to commit the teachings to memory. That's it. When you're chanting, you're not praying and asking for anything. It's not anything mystical or magical. It's just words. It's just sounds. The teachings of the Buddha aren't anything to convince other people to do, right? If you're trying to force or control other people to learn these teachings, that's not what this path is about. This path is about you developing. It's about inner growth. It's about being introspective. It's about looking inward and growing and training and developing your own mind. It's kind of like a self-help program to improve the condition of your mind and the condition of your life, right? So it's not about going out and convincing other people to do something. It's about you changing and transforming. And then as you become more and more peaceful and people ask you like, hey, what have you been doing? You're so peaceful. Oh, here you go. It's the teachings of the Buddha. And maybe they're interested and maybe they're not. But you're not interested in going out and trying to force or control other people to do something. It's about you doing your own inner work. You're on your own independent journey to enlightenment. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not these short, catchy phrases that will produce some kind of benefit in your life. If you've spent time on Facebook or Instagram or other social media sites, sometimes there's these short little catchy phrases, and then people will put the name of the Buddha on there. If you research these, 99.9% of them aren't even the words of the Buddha. You can go back and research them and you can see like, oh my goodness, the Buddha didn't even say this. He doesn't even speak this way. So sometimes people come up with these short, catchy phrases themselves and then they'll put the Buddha. Well, the Buddha didn't say that, right? So there's deep learning. His teachings are very deep in meaning, very profound, very clear and concise, and very direct. So these short little catchy phrases that you see, they're most likely not even the Buddha's, even though someone might attribute it to the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not stuck in this cultural past where they might denigrate certain people, right? Sometimes when people are sharing teachings and they're trying to attribute it to the Buddha, they might try to denigrate women or someone who prefers same-gender relationships or something like this. The Buddha never did any of that stuff. That's what people today are choosing to do. You will never find anywhere in his original words where he denigrates women or denigrates other people for any reason. His teachings aren't stuck in this cultural past that judges others or degrades others. That's not what he taught. He taught that everybody's equal and we're all the same. And he taught you to be humble and down to earth and treat everybody with politeness and respect and kindness. So while some people may teach in that way and they may hate people of certain types, that's their hate. That's not the Buddha's hate. The Buddha didn't hate anybody. He didn't denigrate or diminish anybody at all. Okay? And then that's what I have to share with you guys on this particular topic so far about what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they aren't. Do you guys have any questions on anything that I've been sharing so far? Yeah, you have another question? Yeah.
What did the Buddha say about the afterlife? and soul.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the Buddha taught to get to enlightenment in this life. And by getting to enlightenment in this life, you won't experience rebirth in the cycle of rebirth. But if you don't get to enlightenment, then you will be reborn in the cycle of rebirth. If you get to enlightenment, what comes next, if anything at all, he left as an undeclared teaching. Right? So some people say once you get to enlightenment and you die, people will say, oh, you don't exist anymore. He didn't actually teach this. Or some people might say, oh, you die and you go to heaven. This isn't actually true. He didn't teach this. When you look at his teachings, he says very clearly, he says, remember, monks, what did I teach? I taught this. And he points to the Four Noble Truths, the thing that I'm about to teach you guys. And then he says, remember what I did not teach. I did not teach this. And he gives these 10 things that he doesn't teach. One of the things that he didn't teach is whether you do exist or you don't exist after you attain enlightenment. And I have various reasons why I think he left it as an undeclared teaching. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is so peaceful and so joyful, it doesn't matter. Because if there's something next, it's going to be as good as what you're currently experiencing or better. And if there isn't anything next, okay, so be it. You're already peaceful and joyful now. So this isn't about doing a bunch of things now to experience some great afterlife. It's about doing certain things now so you can experience benefit now, right? So if you don't get to enlightenment, you will experience rebirth, and you've been experiencing that for countless eons already. But if you get to enlightenment, he doesn't declare what's next. In terms of a soul, that's another undeclared teaching. He doesn't say that there is a soul, but he doesn't say that there isn't a soul. So even though we talk about the cycle of rebirth, there isn't anything that's being reborn, right? Because this is a completely new being. There's a new body and a new mind for every single existence. So even though this word samsara, which is the Pali word, people have been translating as the cycle of rebirth, the way that I would translate it is the cycle of new existence. Because it's a completely new existence every single time. There's nothing that's being reborn at all. So if we continue to think about it as the cycle of rebirth, it thinks that, okay, well, what's being reborn? Nothing. There's nothing that's being reborn. There's a body and there's a mind, but when this body and mind are done, they're done. The contents of the mind can move into another mind. So each mind, you can have the residual memories of your previous lives, but it's a completely new mind and a completely new body every single time. So it's a new existence every single time. So he didn't teach that there is a soul or there isn't a soul, because this conflicts with his teachings on what's called the universal truth of impermanence, the universal truth of non-self. And it conflicts with the cycle of rebirth too. This is where people sometimes get confused, where people teach reincarnation, if you've heard that word. This is not what the Buddha actually taught. Reincarnation, even though people are attributing it to the teachings of the Buddha, this is dependent on a soul that is moving from life to life to life to life. But the Buddha never taught that there is a soul or there isn't a soul. So as soon as you hear someone talking about a soul in relationship to the teachings of the Buddha, you know that they haven't studied the original teachings in depth, because they would know that the Buddha didn't teach that. And same thing with reincarnation. But instead, he taught samsara, or what people translate as the cycle of rebirth, or what I would say is the cycle of new existence, because that's the way that he describes it. It's a new existence every single time. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Buddha didn't told if you get enlightened, you will rebirth. You will what happened after death, but he knows it, and enlightened people also know what happens after the death. Or
it's hard to say whether the Buddha did know it or didn't know it. This is what I'll share with you. It's in the book series too, that I think the Buddha wisely left it as undeclared teaching. And here's why. Here's some different reasons why he might have left it as undeclared. The first reason why he might have left it as undeclared is he may not have known what is next, because he never experienced it. Right? That was the first time he'd ever gotten to enlightenment, and he had never gotten to enlightenment and died. So he didn't know what was next. That could be one reason. But a Buddha does have the ability to know things without having ever experienced them. So let's just say that he got to enlightenment and he did know whether there was something next or not. Well, let's just say that there is something next, and let's just say it's an amazing thing. And let's just say if he knew that, if he described that, that would be one more craving that you have to eliminate, because now you're going to start craving that thing, right? So if there was something next and he knew about it, he wisely left it as an undeclared teaching, because you have enough cravings to eliminate. You don't need to have one more stacked on top of that. So by teaching you, or by not teaching you what is next, it requires you to train to the point where in the present moment, you can be peaceful and joyful. You're not longing, yearning for an afterlife. The teachings of the Buddha are about gaining peace and joy right now, in the present moment. So if your mind is craving this afterlife, then you're not peaceful in the present moment, because you want something that you don't have. So he wisely left it as an undeclared teaching, because either he didn't know what was next, either he knew and he just didn't teach it because he knew how unwise it would be to teach it, right? Those are some of the reasons why he might not have taught it. Or the third reason, there just might not be anything next. Right? There may not be. It's an undeclared teaching. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's so peaceful and joyful in the present moment, you won't care whether there is something next or there isn't something next.
The only one who knows is God, I think.
God knows for sure, right? God's very
Didn't
wise, all-knowing, all-powerful being. But you don't need to know in order to get to enlightenment. And it's better that you don't. Just get to peacefulness and joy now in the present moment. Because sometimes people are so worried about the past and all the things that they've done in the past, or they're longing and yearning and having anxiety about the future or fear about the future. This practice is about right now. Just get to the peace and the joy. That's what it's all about. Forget about an afterlife. Who cares, right? Right now you're in this human state. Get to the peace and to the joy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if the Buddha's teaching is not superstitious, how does that stand with the fact that he explains that he talked about spirits and different realms?
Mm-hmm.
In the previous slides, you were talking about other beings being with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't have to do with superstition. That's explaining true reality. And you can independently verify that these 5 realms exist. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that, but in volume 11, chapter 105, I teach you how to independently verify it. And there's 17 things. Like, do you know what deja vu is? Have you ever heard of that? Yeah, so that's like one simple thing that a lot of people have experienced, but there's 17 things. Deja vu is like you have memories right now and you're like, I know I've done this before. It feels so utterly familiar, but you know it's not in this life. This is the residual memory surfacing from your previous lives. But usually people don't understand that and they just push it to the side and they think like, whatever, but this is indication to you that you've had previous lives, and you can see that in that there are these other beings. Like, you probably haven't ever seen a ghost. No, you haven't seen a ghost, right? So some of us have seen these different beings. Like, I saw a ghost before, and that's how I know that what the Buddha taught is 100% true, because I've seen one before. But you don't have to be shaken up by it. You don't have to be disturbed by it or anything like this. You just know, like, okay, that's true reality. He's describing true reality. He's describing exactly what happened. And then you just independently verify it for yourself. And there's no superstition or auspicious things. These ghosts aren't out to get you. They're not coming to attack you. Sometimes in Thailand, people are so scared of ghosts. The spirit houses and things like that. That's not have anything to do with the teachings of the Buddha. So superstition is like, like in Thailand, like everybody likes number 9. Right? Everybody, they would like a phone number 9, or their house number to be number 9. Or like on Wednesday, it's like a very difficult day in Thai society. Or like, when you go to the temple and you see the days of the week, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they think like, oh, there's some kind of superstition around this. Or they might buy a lottery ticket at the temple because they think there's some auspicious thing There's none of that. That's not true. That's just mystical, magical stuff. The Buddha taught you about true reality, like cause and effect, cause and effect.
Afterlife, they are still alive.
They're still a being that's in existence, but we don't refer to them as a living being, but they are in existence. When the Buddha describes a living being, he describes 5 things need to exist. There needs to be physical form. There needs to be feelings. There needs to be perceptions, which are like views and opinions about the world. There needs to be volitional formations, which are choices and decisions. And then there needs to be a consciousness or a mind. These are called the 5 aggregates, or the 5 collections, or the 5 elements. So human beings and animals are what we refer to as living beings, because these beings can be killed. We can physically die, right? These other beings, hell, afflicted spirits, and heavenly realms, they have a certain lifespan that they will end up ending that existence and moving to another existence, but they don't have physical form. They have all those other aggregates, but they don't have physical form. So that's why we can't kill a ghost, or we can't kill a hell being or a heavenly being, but they do have a certain lifespan that is impermanent. So these beings exist, but we don't refer to them as a living being, but they are in existence. And once their existence is over, they will then leave that existence and move into another existence. So let's just say somebody was human and now they've died and they now become an afflicted spirit. They're not alive in terms of a living being, but they are in existence still, but they're just in a different type of existence as a ghost instead of a human being. And you can even have ghosts that are animals too, like from the animal realm. They can become an afflicted spirit as well. So you can move in and out of these realms. You can go from hell up to heaven, heaven down to hell. You can move through all 5 of these realms. It's very rare for beings to go from hell up to heaven, or from hell, or from heaven down to hell, but it's possible. The Buddha talks about this. But the human realm is the ideal existence to be in, because you have the ability to get to enlightenment and you have the ability to train your mind. In the hell, animal, and afflicted spirits, they can't get to enlightenment from those existences, but they can be reborn into human or heavenly existence and get to enlightenment. The heavenly existence, this one, they tend to lack motivation. They tend to be very complacent because they get so much pleasant feelings, and they tend to not work to get to enlightenment. They have a really long lifespan, and they oftentimes are reborn into other realms. They can get to enlightenment, but they tend to lack motivation, where you have built-in motivation because you get angry and sad and frustrated and irritated, and you don't like those feelings. So you have a built-in motivation to get to enlightenment where they don't have that. Yeah, great questions, guys. Let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything online. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little short break for you guys to rest and talk a little bit, maybe use the restroom or something like that. It's basically 2:20. So let's take a 20-minute break and we'll come back at 2:40. And then what I'm going to teach you guys is the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. It's his very first teaching. And this is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding the problem in your mind, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And you can independently verify it. And you'll be able to see for yourself why you get angry, why you get sad, why you get frustrated. It's not the outside world, but I'm going to teach you exactly what this is in a way that you can independently verify it. So let's come back in about 20 minutes and we'll continue from there, including you guys online as well. So we'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Okay? Okay. Yeah, that's not possible. You'll have to ask him. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like if you came preloaded with a bunch of software, it's like that's like almost trying to control you. Instead, it's like you have free will. You can choose to do whatever you would like to do. So for those of you guys online, we've been having an interesting conversation here at break time about lots of different things. But I'm going to start class again to get us headed towards understanding this very first teaching of the Buddha, which is called the Four Noble Truths. This is the very first thing that you would need to learn. So in terms of an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, this is where the Buddha would start you. When you were learning his teachings, he would start students with the Four Noble Truths. With the Four Noble Truths, you understand the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And as I teach you, whether it's this teaching or any other teachings in the future, you should never believe anything that I teach you. Don't believe anything that I write in books. Don't believe anything that I teach you in classes. Belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. You're not interested in believing anything. You would like to get to wisdom. That's what's going to transform your mind. So when I teach you today, I'm going to show you how to learn something intellectually. I'm going to show you how to reflect on it to independently verify what I'm teaching you is true. And then I'm going to show you how to practice it so you can integrate it into your life and you can get the benefit. And as I mentioned, you've done the same thing with the natural law of gravity, because what I'm going to start teaching you is the natural laws. So you've done the same thing with the natural law of gravity. You awoke to that wisdom, and now you don't struggle and you don't have difficulties. But now you need to awaken to these natural laws so that you can eliminate those struggles and those difficulties. So here's what I mean by that, is this very first teaching that I'm going to start you with is right here. It's called right view. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Eightfold Path. Everything that the Buddha taught plugs into this Eightfold Path in one way or another. And it starts with right view. So I'm going to teach you right view. When the Buddha teaches right view, he explains that it's the Four Noble Truths. And you guys will understand this as we get going. To understand right view, you need to first understand the three universal truths, and then we can move into the Four Noble Truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe them. You're on your own independent journey to enlightenment. You're learning, you're growing, you're developing, you're cultivating wisdom. So here, this first universal truth of impermanence, I'll teach it to you, then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it, and then we'll go beyond that. So to learn about the universal truth of impermanence is to understand that things in the world are constantly changing, that there isn't this fixed state, right? There isn't this constant permanence in the world, that everything around you is constantly changing. It's arising, it's changing, and it's fading away. This is called impermanence. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. So what we refer to this as is a conditioned object. That conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. Okay, so this is the universal truth of impermanence. There's also something called an unconditioned object. An unconditioned object, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. It's just persistent. So enlightenment itself is an unconditioned object. It's permanent. And the natural laws themselves, they are also unconditioned. That's why the teachings of the Buddha are timeless, that what he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today because these natural laws haven't changed. But everything else around you is all impermanent. Okay, this is what I'm teaching you, that everything around you is impermanent. That's the learning. That's the intellectual part. But now you don't believe me. Don't believe anything I say. Right? So now you start reflecting on it to independently verify it. And what I suggest you do is take something that you're already familiar with, like this human body. You're familiar with this human body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If the body's permanent, that means it's never changed. It's been exactly the same your whole life. If this body is impermanent, then that means it's constantly changing. So what would you say? Is your body permanent or impermanent? You don't have to use the mics. It's okay. Do you think it's permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? when we first were conceived in the womb, this body's been constantly changing ever since then. We get taller, we get fatter, we get shorter, our skin complexion changes, our hair grows, we get teeth that come in, then the teeth fall out. That's impermanence, right? And then we get new teeth that come in, and then we get cavities, we get pimples and moles, and hair grows at different places. This is all impermanence, constant change. What would you say about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, then that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your life. So are your relationships permanent or impermanent? He says impermanent. What do you guys say? Impermanent? Impermanent? You guys online? Your relationships are impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent? He says impermanent. James says impermanent. It means it's going up and down, or maybe down, 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 or up, 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 right? Our bank account's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Is it always sunny in Thailand? No, right? It sometimes rains. Sometimes we get a earthquake or a typhoon or other things like this, right? It's constantly changing. Some places it snows and sleets and hail and tornadoes and things like this, right? The weather's constantly changing. So we could go on and on and on in all these different examples. And if you need to do this, do it. Walk down the street. Look at the sidewalk. When you see the crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. When the height of the sidewalk is changing, that is impermanence. The shape and the size and the color and the texture of the sidewalk, that's impermanence. Some streets have a sidewalk, some streets don't. That is impermanence. Not every street has a sidewalk. When you look at a fence and you see the paint fading, that is impermanence. When you see a car and it's got a scratch on it, that is impermanence. When you look at the wall of the temple and you see the marks on the wall, that's all impermanence. It's not possible for this wall to be permanently one color. It's not possible, right? So they got all these marks and all these different scrapes and different colors of paint because of impermanence, right? You can see the floor. Look at the wood planks. They're different color wood planks. That's all impermanence, right? Everything around you is constantly changing. Okay, this is a fundamental building block to understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. Then the second universal truth here is called discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering. If you've learned the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might see them use this word suffering. I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching. The original word that the Buddha teaches in the Pali Canon is dukkha or tuk, right? This is the word that's used, but it's translated typically to suffering. But I'm going to explain to you what I use and the reason why, so you'll understand. So when the Buddha talks about this universal truth, I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because he describes three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Painful feelings are like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness there, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put it into the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if someone you don't know came and sat really, really close to you and their body was touching your body, you'd probably say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, you're kind of uncomfortable. You're kind of unsatisfied in that situation. That's a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. So what the Buddha is doing here in this universal truth is he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. The unenlightened mind experiences pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And you can independently verify this because you're unenlightened and you know that. Do you experience this? Because if this is accurately describing what you experience, then you can see, yes, this is universal truth. The Buddha is explaining what's called a conditioned feeling, that in the unenlightened state, you experience conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're going to get either happy and excited, or you're going to get sad or frustrated, irritated, or lonely or bored or some other feeling. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, yay, it's sunny. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I'm going to go hiking today. I was wanting to go with my friends hiking for a long time. We can go hiking today. It's sunny outside. You just formed a conditioned feeling. Based on the condition that there's sun, I will now be happy. This mind is now happy because of the sun. But the problem with a conditioned feeling is it's temporary. It's impermanent. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. The reason why is because the condition of the sun is impermanent. So if you form your feeling of happiness based on the sun, well, the sun is impermanent. So now when it rains, you move from happiness to sadness. Or say you get so excited when your bank account is here. Well, if that's when you're excited, when you have $5,000 in your bank account, well, then when your bank account goes here, now you're sad because it's a conditioned feeling. It's based on some condition. And it's not possible for your bank account to always be $5,000. It's not possible because that would be permanence, right? So what the Buddha is describing to you here is conditional feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And you can look over your life and all the different feelings you've experienced and you can see, yeah, this is what I experience. You experience this in the unenlightened state. So some people refer to this as suffering, but I don't refer to it that way because I think it describes the painful feelings really well. When you're excited and you're happy, you probably wouldn't say you're suffering. Or when that person you don't know came and sat really close to you on the bus and their body's touching your body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. You're discontent. Your mind is experiencing discontentedness. When you're happy, have you ever been so happy and excited you like tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke it? It's because your mind's shaken up. You're discontent, right? So if we use this word suffering, it doesn't accurately represent what the Buddha was teaching. You would only be understanding 33% of what he was teaching. So if you're missing 66% of his teachings on this important topic, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment because you don't understand that the conditional pleasant feelings are part of the problem. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to be happy. But in the unenlightened state, this has to be true, 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 and then I will be happy, right? If all these things are true, my bank account is here, the weather is here, my parents do this, I eat this food for today, then I will be happy. That's called conditional happiness. And the more conditions that you have, the less and less happy you can be. But over here in the enlightened mind, you've eliminated all of that. You can have unconditional happiness, where your mind is always happy and joyful. So this is describing what you experience in the unenlightened state, which are conditional feelings. And the conditional pleasant feelings are just as much of a problem as the painful ones. Because as long as you allow your mind to get conditional pleasant feelings, that condition is not permanent. So therefore, when that condition changes, you're going to end up in the painful feelings. It's only a matter of time. So if you get so excited because you got that brand new job and they're paying you great money, it's a wonderful title, it's a great location, and you get so excited, that job's not permanent. The company goes out of business 3 years from now, 5 years from now, they lay you off, you're going to be sad. You're going to be frustrated because you allowed the mind to get those conditional pleasant feelings, right? So those are just as much of a problem as the painful ones. Okay, so this is the universal truth of discontentedness. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's these 10 fetters or 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered. The first one is called personal existence view. This is where the mind falsely believes, has the misperception and the misunderstanding and the confusion that this body is you, or this mind is you. The mind clings to a self-image or a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are. And now, when somebody compliments you and says, wow, you're so handsome, or oh, you're so beautiful, you get pleasant feelings like, wow, they're talking about me. They're talking about this body. They're talking about me. I feel great. But now, because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging about this body. And now you're sad and you're frustrated because they're talking bad about this body. But what the Buddha says in the universal truth of non-self is, this isn't you. This body isn't you. It's not who you are as a person. So if you cling to this self-image, when you're in a public setting and you spill spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothes, you'll be embarrassed, right? Your mind is confused. It's thinking that this body is you. So when you spill something on your clothes, you're not being perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived. So now you get embarrassed. Or if you've ever had a pimple or a mole and you look in the mirror and you get shaken up by that, or if you have a gray hair, right, or you get a little bit extra fat here and there, you might be shaken up by this because you think that this body is you when it's not. And then there's the self-image, or the self-identity in the mind. Like, I don't know where you guys are all from, like I am German, or I am Thai. I am Chinese. Where are you from? I am Canadian, right? Or there's some people online, I am Japanese, I am German, right? Your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, you can cling to any number of these things and thinking that this is who you are. Like, I am American. Well, I am not American. Right? This body was born on a land that we refer to as America, but this mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. Because if it does, when you're out at a restaurant and there's people talking and they're like, all Americans are so friendly and loving and kind. I've never heard that, but if somebody ever says that, right? You'd get pleasant feelings because they're talking about me. But then 2 tables over, someone's talking degrading and disparagingly about Americans. Well, if you identify with I am American, now when they talk in degrading and disparaging ways, you're going to feel sad and frustrated. You might be ready to fight, right? If they're talking about Germans or Chinese people or Canadians or Thai people, and if you identify with that's who you are as a person, you'll be upset, you'll be angry. So there's all kinds of things that your mind could hold on to, like your job, your occupation. If you've ever been in a relationship with like a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you were together, you might have identified with, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you separate, you might have wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because your mind was uncomfortable with, I am single. Because your mind doesn't identify that way. Your mind identifies with, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when I am single, the mind struggles and has difficulties with that, right? So this personal existence view, this pollution is hindering you from being able to experience peace and joy because you're clinging to this body, thinking this is who you are, and you're clinging to the mind, thinking that this is who you are. The self-image and the self-identity. So the solution to that is that the Buddha explains to you, there is no self. That's the universal truth of non-self. That this body is not you, this mind is not you. There is a body, there is a mind, and it has come together for this existence, but this isn't you. So this is where the mind gets confused and it has a misunderstanding, thinking that this body is you or this mind is you. And you can independently verify this. Okay, so here's how you independently verify that there is no self. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now. Like your character, your personality. Has it been exactly the same the whole time, or has it been constantly changing? What would you say? Constantly changing, right? This is one way to independently verify that there is no self. Because if there's a self, then it would be the same all the way through. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No. No, right? You're not less of a person. So intellectually, you understand that this body isn't you. Because if I ask you that question, if your arm is amputated, are you less of a person? You would say yes. But see, this is where intellectually you understand this body isn't you. But the mind is confused, because in a situation where somebody says something degrading and disparaging about this body, you get angry, you get frustrated. That's the misunderstanding. That's the confusion that the mind has. Here's another way. Sometimes I ask students, I say, point to you. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? And someone will point, right? Or they'll point here, right? So look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. That shirt you're wearing, is that you? Is that who you are? So we take the shirt off, we hold it up. Is that you? People usually say, no, that's not me. Okay, let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? Someone might point. Okay, what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin. Is that who you are? That skin that you have, is that you? People say, no, that's not me. Okay, we take off the skin, we throw that away. What do you got left? You got bones, you got muscle tissue, you've got fluid and organs. None of that is you. Those are all little bits and pieces and parts, but none of that is you. So you can independently verify that there is no you. There's no you there. There's just little pieces and bits and parts. But the confusion, the misunderstanding, the problem in the mind is that it thinks that this is you. And this is one of the reasons why the mind is being shaken up. Okay, so this is a teaching that you need to explore later. This is a kind of an introduction to the universal truth of non-self, but this is something that I help you to learn here, just as a little bit of an introduction. But in other programs and other courses and retreats, we go into this in a lot more detail. Sometimes people understand it when I first talk about it. Sometimes they don't. So if you're not really understanding it 100%, that's okay. Later on, as you grow and develop, you can understand this further. But do you guys have any questions on these three universal truths? Anything you guys would like to discuss? Okay, let me check online. Okay, we don't have anything online either. Okay, so now, oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I am a bit confused.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can understand this body is not me, but like my mind is also not me, then what am I?
That's the problem. That is, long as you keep grasping for an I, what am I, your mind hasn't let go yet. It's still holding on to the mind. It's holding on to the body. It sounds like you were able to let that go pretty easily. But as long as you're looking for an I, your mind hasn't done what we call realized non-self. That in order to get to enlightenment, you need to ultimately realize non-self, that there is no I, there is no me. The exact words that the Buddha says, he says, there is no you there. There's no you there. I see skin, I see flesh, I see a shirt, I see glasses, I see hair, but none of that is you. It's not who you are. That's all constantly changing. So there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, but it's not who you are as a person. So that's why when we get a little extra fat, we don't have to be all shaken up by it. If we get a mole, if we get a pimple or gray hair, this is just impermanence. That's all it is. But the mind's going to cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are. So one time I came out of my house and I was walking to the park in my village, and my next door neighbor said, "David, you're so fat." I said, "Yep, sure am." And I just patted my stomach and just kept on walking. I smiled, right? But if I thought that this body was me, I would have been angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. But no, because I know he's talking about this body, but he's not talking about me, because this isn't me. So the same thing with your mind. It's not you. It's not who you are. But your mind's going to keep grasping and trying to hold on to something. What am I? If I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? Nothing. There's no you there. So it's a way for the Buddha to help you eliminate your clinging to the body and to the mind, thinking that this is who you are. But it takes time for your mind to be able to see that truth and to fully let go. Do you have a follow-up? Go ahead. You can ask more. Yeah. This one people don't often get right away when they first learn it. Like universal truth of impermanence and discontent. All right, we got you. This one, it's a bit more challenging.
I still don't understand that.
Still don't understand how to turn on the mic. No. The microphone's impermanent too. You see, the Buddhist teachings transcend time, even microphones.
Yeah.
Microphones didn't even exist during his lifetime, but he still explains it, right?
Okay, I still don't understand, but like I wonder if like there's no me, then how should my mind think? Like should my mind standing here and looking at this body and like that, like as another person or something, or I just don't know like another way to think about it.
Sure. So when I look at this body, I see flesh, I see skin, I see hair, but I just know that this isn't me. It's not who I am. But it took time to train the mind to do that. There's various training that you need to employ. You're not going to just get it right away. But when I see this body, it's just a body, right? It's just skin, it's just bones, it's just tissue, and it's not me. It's not who I am. So there is a body, there is a mind, and the combination of these things we refer to as a person. The Buddha calls it a person, right? Or we might say human being, right? But this is in you. But the mind's going to keep wanting this something. Where am I? Well, there's nothing here. It's just a mind. It's just a body. It's come together. It's called a person. You should wisely take care of this body, right? Because the mind and the body are together, and there's certain experiences that you're having, but this body isn't you. To eliminate your clinging to think that this is you, because right now you look fairly young, like 20s or 30s, right? So you're not going to always be young. Eventually your skin's going to wrinkle, your hair's going to turn gray, you're going to get extra fat here and there. And if you cling to this body thinking this is who you are, you'll be shaken up when that occurs. So the Buddha is giving you the solution to that and saying, hey, all this impermanence you experience with the body, that's just impermanence. It's not you. It's not who you are. So you're going to experience this change of the body. And you're going to experience the change of your identity too. Like, say, for example, I was a police officer, right? And I was working in this career for 10, 20 years, and I identify with, I am a police officer. Well, say I get injured and I can't do that job anymore. I'm going to struggle. I'm going to have difficulties because I identify with, I am a police officer. So now when I'm sitting behind a desk, just answering phones at an accounting firm, my mind is discontent because I am a police officer, but I'm sitting behind this desk doing accounting work. And I don't identify that way. I identify as I am a police officer. And now I feel miserable and horrible about my life. So if you get rid of your self-identity and you get rid of the clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, you can get to peace and joy. But it takes time for you to be able to see that truth and get to that point. But this is just a little bit of an introduction to it. You have more? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think I understand a bit of like this body isn't me, but I can feel the awareness, and if like my mind is not me, then where should I put my awareness?
The awareness is the mind itself, right? So the person is training the mind to be pure so that the mind can get to enlightenment. There's this person. This is the combination of the thing. The Buddha calls them three things. He says there's a body, there's a mind. The combination of the two forms the person, the third entity. So the person, I don't know your name because I just met you today. Lulu? So Lulu, this being that has been labeled as Lulu, right? Somebody gave you that label. Your mind has adopted this identity that I am Lulu. But you're not Lulu because there's many Lulus in the world. You're not the only Lulu. right? So I am not David. You are not Lulu. It's just a label that we were given to make it easy to refer to each other and understand each other. So the person that is labeled Lulu is trying to train the mind to be able to be peaceful and joyful. But the mind is almost like its own entity, its own thing. So don't identify with the mind or the body as being who you are, because these things are constantly changing. And if you cling to, I am Chinese, or I don't know your life at all, so I can't give you all the different identity that your mind might have, but whatever identity your mind's clinging to, whenever those things are changing, or whenever you have agreeable or disagreeable contact related to that, you'll be shaken up by it. If you were sitting at a restaurant and you heard people degrading and disparaging Chinese people, would you be angry or frustrated? If you were sitting at a restaurant and like 2 tables over, they were degrading and disparaging Chinese people, would you be upset? Like if they were like, all Chinese people or blah, 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 would you be upset? Yeah, because you've got that identity. And the Buddha's saying, that's not who you are. Let that go. You aren't Chinese. This body was born in a land that we refer to as China, but it hasn't always been referred to that way. So you can't be Chinese because that's a modern thing that just came about. Same thing like Thailand. Thailand is, Thai, or American. This is just an identity that your mind has adopted. And our countries want us to adopt that label. Because if I adopt the label of I am American, now I will invest, I will work hard, I will try to build up that country. We even have flags and national anthems and all kinds of things to try to convince us that I am American. Well, at one time my mind thought that way, but not anymore. Now I understand that this body was born there, but the mind doesn't identify that way. So you can get to the point where you let go of this and you realize that, hey, there's just a body, there's just a mind. We refer to this as a person. I don't need to cling to any of this. It's just a body, a mind, and a person. That's it. But it's going to take you time to be able to see that truth more and more. So like I mentioned, the first 2 are pretty straightforward. The third one takes people more time to wrap their mind around. So that's why in this book series, Volume 1, Chapter 16, I devoted an entire chapter to this. And there's some times where I teach a full hour and a half just on this topic alone to help students understand it. Have a question?
Hey, then who is enlightened?
So it's not I am enlightened. This is why if somebody ever says to you, I am enlightened, right away you know they're not enlightened because there's no I. And if anybody's bragging or being egotistical and arrogant about I am enlightened, then you know right away that they're not enlightened, right? So what's getting to enlightenment or what's experiencing enlightenment is the mind, but not I, right? So but then also I'll share this with you. Even though the mind can understand that there is no I here, we sometimes need to use that language because the English language can't really describe what's truly going on. Like when we speak Thai, I might say, David is hungry, right? That's the way we speak in Thai. We use the third person. But in English, we say, I am hungry. Well, I am not hungry because there's no I here. The true reality of it is the body needs food. That's the true reality. But because of our confusion, we say, I am hungry. But there's no I here. I can't be hungry. The body needs food. Or someone might say, I have a headache. I can't have a headache because there's no I here. The head hurts. That's true reality, right? So in Thai, because Buddhism has been here so long, the language has been formed around this. This is why it's so easy to change your name in Thailand. If you'd like to change your name, you just go to this place, sign a couple documents, boom, you can change your name in like 15, 20 minutes. If you tried to do this in a Western country, oh my goodness, it takes you months. You have lawyers, you have background checks, criminal checks, you have to go to the court, you have to ask permission, so many problems to change your name. But here in Thailand, the whole society has been set up around the teachings of the Buddha. right? So that's why the language and the government and everything has been set up around that. So even though you might say in English, I am hungry, your mind needs to know that there's no I. Or I might say like, this is my son, but he's not mine. He doesn't belong to me. He's a completely separate being. So we might say something verbally, but the mind has to be able to understand that this isn't me. It's not who I am. Right? And this is part of the training that you do, is you disassociate with any of this as being you. But there's more to learn on this topic. It's a very interesting topic, and it usually draws a lot of conversation and a lot of questions. But just understand that I'm only giving you an introduction to it. There's a whole lot of training and proactive teachings that you need to use in order to strip away what your mind has built up. Your mind has built up this identity. You've built up this image. Like whatever shirt that you're wearing today, whatever clothes, you might have looked at your closet and say, who am I going to see today? How do I want to look? Right? How do I want to style my hair? How do I want to look today? This is the self-image. Right? And I remember when I was a teenager, I used to stand in front of the mirror for 15, 20 minutes trying to do my hair with mousse before I would go outside. And I wouldn't go outside until my hair was exactly the way I wanted it to look. This is the personal existence view, right? Where you can liberate your mind from all of that. You can let it go when you realize that this isn't you. So it just takes training to be able to get to that point. And that's one of the reasons why we shave our hair. Not everybody has to shave their hair to get to enlightenment, but that's one of the reasons why we shave our hair, is because you're disassociating with this body as being who you are. This is also why the monks wear simple clothing and we wear simple white, because we're not interested in projecting a self-image. You're training your mind to let go of the self-image and not cling to it as who you are as a person. So when you wear very simple clothes, it'll help your mind to do that. But there's other ways to do this. You don't have to wear all white. You don't have to shave your head. These are just some of the things that can be done in order to help you to realize non-self. Okay, you guys ready to move on? Yeah? Okay. So now one more building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths is called craving, desire, attachment. This is a certain word or series of words that we use to refer to a certain aspect of the mind. The craving, the desire, the attachment, the wants and expectations, the holding, the grasping, the clinging. This is referring to the mind's longing and yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, that the mind is longing, yearning. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw this new product, like a new pair of shoes, and you're like, oh, new pair of shoes. Yes, 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 yes. I can't wait to get that. Oh, it's going to be so great if I get that new pair of shoes. That's the longing and the yearning. Or it might be new jewelry or new glasses. It's the mind thinking that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it's the mind. It's not the object itself. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the phone or it isn't the computer. It's the longing and yearning for it. Like, oh, if I can just get the iPhone 15, that'll make everything better in my life. It's like a next new shiny object around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it. It's like an unquenchable thirst. If I can just get that boyfriend or girlfriend, everything will be perfect in my life. If I can just get more money, that's what I need, more money, 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 money. The mind's chasing. So it's not the object. It's inside the mind. It's the craving, the desire. It's like the mind's pulling towards the objects of its affection. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You experienced this? Do you know what I'm talking about, Lulu? I know your name now. I can call you in class now. Okay, so this is the longing and yearning. Okay, so now the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. The problem in the unenlightened mind is the discontentedness, the conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. This is the problem. The mind's going up and down and up and down. That's the problem in the unenlightened state. The cause of that problem is the second noble truth. Discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything is impermanent. Okay, I'm going to say that a few ways and I'm going to give you some examples. The discontentedness the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. Because the mind wants things to be permanent, but yet everything is impermanent. So if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings, it gets happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets sad, it gets painful feelings, right? So if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys first got together, everything was perfect, right? So wonderful, pleasant feelings. This person showing you affection, they're sending you text messages, they're calling you on the phone, they're coming to visit you, you're having great conversations, you're going to walks in the park, you're going to the movies, you're going to dinner, you might even have intimate contact at some point. Everything's wonderful. But then things start to change because you get expectations. You have certain wants. There's certain cravings, certain desires. You want them to do a certain thing. And when they do it, you're happy. But when they don't do it, you get angry and sad and frustrated. So when you're together, you feel great. Okay, we're together. But when you're apart, you miss this person. You feel lonely. You feel bored because your mind's craving for them to be permanent. When you're together in the relationship, you might feel fine. But then when your relationship's over, you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated because the mind's craving permanence. It's not the love that's causing you to be angry and frustrated. The love is a genuine interest in seeing them be well. What's causing you to be angry is your craving permanence. Same thing when grandma and grandpa die. It's not your love that's causing you to be upset when mom and dad and brothers and sisters die. It's your craving for them to be permanent. You're wanting them to be permanent. Here's another example. Say you have a brand new car and you drive this brand new car off the parking lot and you go to a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You might be sad. You might be frustrated. You might be agitated. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be angry. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They aren't making you angry. What's making the mind angry and frustrated is the craving for permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because it's unwise to scratch somebody's car. And it'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car. But that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. And as long as your mind's craving permanence, it's going to experience discontentedness. So essentially what I'm teaching you in the second noble truth is your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. What you'll tend to do in the unenlightened state is blame other people. You'll blame your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters and saying, you are making me angry, or your friends. And you've ended relationships. You've pushed people away out of your life because you thought they were making you angry, when in reality it was your own mind making you angry. And the way that you know this to be true is that when you pushed people away, it didn't solve your problem. You still have the problem. You still get angry. You still get frustrated. If that was the real cause of the problem, when you push them out of your life, you wouldn't get angry anymore. But you still get angry. You still have the problem because you haven't fixed the cause, because you just didn't understand the cause. You didn't have the wisdom to know what the true cause is. So as long as you don't know what the cause is, you're going to not be able to solve this problem. So that's why the Buddha starts with understanding what is the real cause. Right? So if you push people away, this is normal. This is the unenlightened mind misunderstanding the problem, thinking the problem's external. The other thing you might do is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. Through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, you feel painful feelings. You think it's something external, and now you yell at your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or someone else. And you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong necessarily. You just lack wisdom and you lack mental discipline. You lack moral conduct, right? Your mind hasn't been trained. It's polluted. So you become bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. It's like an animal growling and roaring and showing its teeth at another animal, trying to fear them to do things your way. That's the bitterness and the harshness. The third thing that you might do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them because you're trying to get your cravings fulfilled. If you can just get this person to do things your way, the mind thinks everything will be perfect. But you can't control 8 billion people to do things your way in the world. It's just not possible. So as long as you don't understand the cause of your discontentedness, you're going to be trapped. You're going to keep experiencing it over and over because of the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. So you can independently verify this second noble truth is 100% true. Here's how you do it. What I just shared with you is your mind is causing your own discontentedness, and it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing it. So now take a recent time when you've been angry or frustrated. It might have been this morning. It might have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else for what you were experiencing. But now with this new wisdom, look at that same situation and ask yourself, what was it that you wanted? That if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or sad or frustrated, or you felt stress or anxiety or some other feeling. Do you see it? Your mind wanted something, right? And you didn't get it. That's why it experienced that. You can independently verify this. So every single time in your entire life, when you've been angry and frustrated and irritated, all along it's always been your own mind. But we were in arguments where we were adamantly fighting with people, trying to convince them that what they were doing was causing us to be angry, and they had to stop doing that. But it wasn't them. They might have been doing something that was unwise, but that's not what was causing your anger and your sadness and your frustration. It was your craving, wanting things to be a certain way. And the world can't be your way. It's just not possible. So while you may want the world to be your way, what the Buddha is explaining to you is this is the way the world is. These are the natural laws. And your mind is causing its own discontentedness. So this is the second noble truth, that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. And if you have trouble independently verifying this, let me know. I will help you. You tell me. I've had students tell me before, like, David, I went to work the other day and I came home and my wife had everything all over the house she had this craft project and I got really frustrated. How did my mind cause it? I wasn't even there. I just walked in and the house was a wreck. And I was like, well, when you went to work, you saw the house look one particular way and your mind was craving for it to look that way when you got home. And it's not permanent. Your house can't permanently look that way. It's not possible. This house is impermanent. And then your wife having her craft project out, that is impermanent too. She's going to put it away at some point, and maybe you help her. But when you crave permanence and you want the house to look one particular way, when you came home, you got frustrated because you have a craving for the house to always look that way permanently. And it's just not possible because of impermanence. So if you have trouble independently verifying it, let me know. The third noble truth is explaining the elimination. The elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Because craving, desire, attachment is the cause, the elimination of it is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So the Buddha is providing you the teachings and the guidance and the tools and techniques of how to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. That's what he's doing in his teachings. And it's the fourth noble truth where he's explaining that the complete solution is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is what's going to provide you the complete perfect plan of how to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And it starts with right view, that you have to establish right view. This is part of the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. What wrong view is to blame other people for your discontentedness. That's wrong view. What right view is to understand it's your mind that's causing these discontent feelings. Because if you don't understand that, why would you ever meditate? The reason why you're meditating is because the problem is in your mind, right? And you're trying to solve the problem, right? And the way that you solve that is through training your own mind. But if you had wrong view and you thought everybody else was the problem, why would you ever read a book? Why would you ever come to the temple? Why would you ever meditate if you thought everybody else was the issue, right? So he starts you off wisely with the very first step is establishing right view, is to understand the problem is within your own mind. And then from that point forward, you build all the other steps, all the other factors in your life practice. This first book in the book series is called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. The path that leads to enlightenment is the Eightfold Path. This is the path. This is your life practice. So as you learn and you grow and you develop each one of these factors, you'll get closer and closer to enlightenment. And it's organized into 3 sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. He's teaching you the moral conduct because as long as you're putting out harm through your moral conduct, this harm is going to come back to you. So that's why he's teaching you the natural laws around speech and actions and livelihood, so that you're not causing harm through your speech, your actions, your livelihood. And then he's teaching you the mental discipline of how to train your mind so you can have control and discipline of your mind. So this is the path to enlightenment. Okay? Oops. So the last thing I'll share, and then we'll just kind of end class with any questions that you guys have, is what are the teachings of the Buddha? It's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, right? And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to teach you how to do that. But you need to know what's causing the painful feelings. It's the craving, desire, attachment. It's within your own mind. If you're going around the world trying to fix other people, you won't solve your problem that way, because the problem is inside your own mind. So you can train your own mind and you can get to the point where it's liberated, it's free from these strong feelings. And it starts with right view, is understanding what the real cause of the problem is. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys today. If you guys have questions, let me know, and we can talk through this, and I can help you to understand the Four Noble Truths, because you would need to know this in order to really make real effort and improvements to your mind. So any questions here? You have a question? Go ahead.
I have maybe 3 questions. But
Sure. You can ask 300 if you like.
Huh?
You can ask 300 if you like.
Okay. The first one is, you said, like, it's not external things that cause your pain, but I mean, I am at the very beginning of my journey to gain wisdom, so I'm just like a human, and lack of wisdom. So can I do this for now, like to cut off things and to push people away? So it helps me.
Yeah. So you're not going to get to enlightenment quickly, right? This journey to enlightenment, it's a multiple year pursuit. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time. So you can learn something like this and intellectually understand it, but you can't snap your fingers and instantly stop being angry. That's why you got to work gradually to gradually train the mind, gradually practice, and gradually progress. So you guys might understand the Four Noble Truths now intellectually, but tomorrow when you see something you don't like and you start getting angry, you might actually blame somebody else for it. But what I suggest you do is don't blame anybody else for what you're experiencing, is look inward and train your own mind. So the answer is yes, you can train your mind and you can get to enlightenment in this life, but it's based on your dedication, your determination, and your diligence. If you apply effort and energy towards enlightenment, then you can make your way towards enlightenment. But if you're complacent and you don't have ambition and motivation to do the work, you won't be able to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need to read books. You're going to need to come to classes. You're going to need to meditate. You're going to need to talk with a teacher, sometimes privately, and talk about different questions that you have. But gradually, being on your own journey, you will cultivate more and more wisdom, and you will ultimately get to enlightenment over time, right? So you can do it. It's just going to take time for you to do it. But this is the last struggle of all struggles, because you've been struggling your whole life, and even lives before this, with anger and sadness and frustration. But once you gain this wisdom and you escape these discontent feelings, you're done. Your mind's peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life. It's a permanent solution that you've acquired. It's just going to take you some time to get there. But if it takes you 5 years, let's just say it takes you 10, 20, even 30 years. I don't think it will, but let's just say it takes you 30 years to get to enlightenment. Okay, so what? The next 15, 20 years of your life, you're going to just have such peace and joy. And if you think about the millions and millions and millions of existences you had before this, the next 30 years is like a drop in the bucket compared to all the countless millions of years you've been in existence over and 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 over again. The Buddha says the amount of tears that you've cried in all of your past existences is more water than all of the water in all of the seas. So if you've ever been scuba diving and you see how much water is in the world, he says your tears are more than that. So that's how many existences you've had where you've been crying and upset and feeling miserable. So even if it takes you the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, so what? By the time you get there, your mind's so peaceful and joyful that you're never going to experience discontentedness ever again. Next question. And you can ask follow-up questions too if you have more based on what I'm answering you to.
Second question is, if you don't get what you are craving, or if you don't get what you want, you feel sad, you feel angry, you feel frustrated. But when you don't want anything, or you don't know what you want, you don't want anything, why it also feels frustrating?
Yeah, so right now in the unenlightened state, you typically only know how to pursue things based in craving. Like, I want more money, so I'm going to fight and I'm going to work hard and I want to get that more money, right? And then if you get it, you're happy, and if you don't, you're sad. And you're also exhausted and you're tired because you're chasing it, right? That's not the way to live life. But also over here, where you could care less whether you had money or not, and you're living a life without the basic needs and necessities that you need, that's not the way to live life either. You're living on two opposite sides of the spectrum. What the Buddha is teaching you is to come to the middle, where you can wisely make decisions to pursue more financial goals. You can pursue your career. You can pursue inner development and growth, but you do it based on wise decision making rather than chasing it with craving, or rather than being over here and indifferent about it. So you need to learn how to pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest, free of craving, desire, attachment. And the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't know how to do that, because typically we're motivated by, wow, she's beautiful, or wow, he's handsome, let me chase after him, or let me chase after her, or wow, I want that new car, let me chase after that for a while, right? And that's all you know how to do. But you need to look at, well, what do I need here? Well, I need clothes. Let me get some clothes. Right? I used to wear a $300 pair of jeans and $200 or $300 pair of shoes and $100 shirt. I don't need that. That's what I was wearing at one time when I had a lot of money, but now I don't have money. So you know what? $5 pair of pants and a $5 shirt, that's all I need. It covers the body, and that's all I need. But before, I was chasing my wants, right? So now you're going to need to learn how to pursue your goals and what do you need in life, rather than your wants, because your wants are endless. It's like an unquenchable thirst. As soon as you get one thing that you want the second thing and the third thing and the fourth thing and the fifth thing. You'll just be chasing it for the rest of your life. Kind of like a dog chasing its tail around in a circle. You just keep chasing around and around and around and around. So if you can stop chasing your wants and pursue your needs, then you can get to peace. But your mind needs to be trained in how to do that, because it doesn't know how to do it. It lacks wisdom, right? It lacks wisdom of how to do that.
Thank you. And the third question is the next slide, no, like the last slide. Yeah, it says, what are teachings of Buddha? And it says to hear from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But if there's no you, no me, then why, like what would hurt me?
Okay, so this is where we use language to describe something, but then we understand true reality. So if I was going to describe this in a way that's factoring in non-self, what I would say is to heal from what is hurting this being, so that this being never needs to hurt ever again. That would be to describe it with the universal truth of non-self. But if I put that up there, you guys would be like, what? I don't understand what this guy is talking about. So that's why I put it up there this way, so that to heal from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt again. But there's no you here. But what's hurting is this mind. This mind is hurting. You're experiencing mental anguish. You're experiencing that discontentedness, those painful feelings. So this being is experiencing those painful feelings. That's the way to really represent true reality. But we need to still use this word you, because these beings don't have the understanding to understand that there is no you. So we need to use that word still. So it's a matter of using the language while the mind understands true reality. Mm-hmm. Leo has a question. Your brother's online.
Yeah.
You can say hi to him if you like.
Hello, Flex. Flex. Yeah, what I want to say, I forgot. Yeah, there is a mind. Uh-huh. There is a mind. It's not that there's a whole mind here.
Yeah.
There are different minds.
Yeah, this is part of the unknowing of true reality. People talk about a collective consciousness. There's no such thing. There's individual minds, and we're all making individual decisions. We're our own individual being.
We are okay. So this mind in the next life or in the previous life before, where
it's not the same mind.
It's not the same mind, but there's something is there keeps the same, right?
It's the craving and residual memories move from one life to the next. So if you have like cardboard box A, think about the cardboard box as the mind. It's a certain size, certain color, certain shape, certain texture. And then it has certain contents in this cardboard box. But this cardboard box A, it's impermanent. It falls away and it dissolves. But the contents are still there. The cravings and residual memories are still there. So now they move into cardboard box B. Cardboard box B is a different shape, different color, different texture. Everything's different about this cardboard box. It's a completely different cardboard box, completely different mind, but the contents are moving from one existence to the other. And this is why a being that's alive today can have memories of their past lives, because the cravings and residual memories go forward into the next life. So if you extinguish the pollutions in this mind, the causes and conditions that produce the next mind won't exist any longer. So there won't be a cardboard box C, because you've eliminated the contents. There are no more cravings in the mind. You've eliminated the content, so there doesn't need to be another cardboard box. Does it make sense? It's kind of like one of the ways we explain it is like, if you have a fire that's burning, if there's logs on the fire, it's going to send a spark. And now this spark is going to land and it's going to ignite a completely new fire. As long as this fire has fuel, it's going to send off sparks. It's going to be carried by the wind and it's going to land and ignite a new fire. But if you get rid of the fuel, there's no more sparks because there's no more fuel. So the fuel that's keeping this continuous cycle going is craving, desire, attachment. The same thing that's causing your discontentedness is causing rebirth too. So the being before this didn't extinguish their cravings, and that's why now there's Leo here, this being we call Leo.
And this craving, desire, attachment, is this a formless being?
Nope.
Or what is? I mean, we can see it, of course. What is that?
It's a pollution of mind. It's think about
this exists, and it exists in the next lives. It's some kind of existence, or what?
The craving.
Yeah.
The craving itself isn't the being. The craving is a mental aspect. It's a certain, we call it a mental object, that it's an object. So if you think about it like this, like the sun, and then there's the clouds, and the clouds are going to come in and block the sun. So the clouds are the pollution. So the mind in its natural state is enlightened. But because there's pollution in the mind, it hinders you from being able to experience the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind. So you can think of the craving, desire, attachment like the clouds. That's the pollution. And when you clear out all the pollution, then the sun can shine through. Same thing, the enlightened mind can shine through when you get rid of all the pollution. But when you've got all this pollution of craving and all the other pollutions in your mind, you can't experience the qualities of the enlightened mind.
It's difficult to think about this craving attachment. If I die somewhere outside and new body, or there's a woman gets a child, and then this craving desires goes into that. And it's newborn.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it that way. that's too magical and mystical and so superstitious.
How to think about that? How this happens, comes to new lives.
If I was you, I would think about it like a spark on the fire, right? Like if at the end of this life there's still craving in the mind, that's the spark that then ignites the new fire. That because there's the spark, it's going to produce a new fire. Spark is like, have you ever seen a fire burning and then have little embers that go up? That's the spark, right? So this craving in your mind, it's like a fire burning. And as long as that fire is burning, there's going to be a spark at the end of this life. And now it's going to make a new fire. There's going to make a new mind. So if you extinguish this, then your mind is peaceful and joyful. You don't experience any kind of discontentedness whatsoever. And you'll know that because you'll feel it. There'll be situations where you used to get angry and frustrated, and you don't get angry and frustrated anymore because you've let that go. You can think about this like the third noble truth here that we were talking about. The elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had. When you guys broke up, you were so angry and you were so frustrated. But at some point you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. If she wants to be with someone else, so be it. I'm let go. And when you let go, you got peaceful. Sometimes you can even feel it come over the mind. You're like, whoa, that feels so much better, right? Because you let go, right? That's how you can independently verify this. But as long as you're holding on, you got fire in there. That's why when you get angry, you feel the heat and you feel the pressure in your skull because you got that fire that's burning in there, that craving, the anger, the ignorance. It's like a fire burning in your mind. But when you can extinguish that, you won't have that anymore. You'll just have wisdom and smiles. The land of smiles, right? Okay. I don't see any questions online. You guys have been awfully quiet online. So let me just check one more time. Okay, I don't see any questions online anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for those of you guys here. Thank you for everyone online. Anytime people are interested and dedicated to learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha, I'm motivated to be able to help you to learn and grow. So you're welcome to come here for classes and courses and retreats. Tomorrow we have a group learning program. It starts at 9 a.m. I'm teaching chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts. We do that at 9 a.m. here and 9 p.m. I do it from home and it's all recorded. And then on Monday, I'm starting a course called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. So there's lots of options for you to learn. I would suggest people start with volume 1, the very first book. You can download it, you can print it, you can get printed versions here, you can get it on Amazon. That's the best place to start. And then I have various courses and retreats that'll help you learn each one of those books. So as you need help, feel free to reach out to me. You can ask me questions in a class like this. You can post in our Facebook group and I'll answer it there. You can send me a private message or you can schedule time and we can meet personally. Okay, so have a lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Maybe we'll see you in a future class. Take care. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.